The moment you need her, you've already lost her. Read that again. Because the second your sense of worth begins to orbit around her presence, her attention, her affection, you surrender something that should never be handed over, your center. And a man who has no center cannot lead. You don't gain influence by chasing, pleading, or trying to prove you're enough. You gain it by becoming the man who walks, calmly, silently, the moment he realizes he doesn't have to convince her of anything. What if everything you were taught about women was backwards? What if the advice to open up more, be agreeable, put her first, was never meant to make you strong, but to keep you small? They told you vulnerability would win her heart. That nice guys finish first if they just wait long enough. But ask yourself, has any of that ever made her stay? This message isn't for the man who still thinks love is earned through sacrifice. This is for the man who's tired of giving more than he receives, of shrinking just to be tolerated, of being chosen only when convenient. This is the line in the sand. And if you feel that in your gut right now, comment below, I choose power. Not dominance, not arrogance, but the kind of inner power that doesn't flinch when she pulls back, goes cold, or tests your edges. Because she doesn't crave the man who needs her, she craves the man who could walk away mid-sentence and never look back, if his peace is on the line. Power isn't in your volume, it's in your silence. Respect isn't begged for, it's felt in your stillness. And real love, it begins when you stop chasing approval and start leading yourself. In this video, I'll show you how to do exactly that. Not by force, not by games, but by becoming the man she can't forget, because he never needed to be chosen to know his worth. If you're ready to rise into that kind of power, into that kind of presence, then like this video, subscribe to Stoic Station, and turn on notifications, not just to support the channel, but to stay connected to the mindset that's building something stronger than approval, quiet, undeniable respect. Now, let's begin. 1. Stop needing her. Build a life she wants to enter, not one that revolves around her. A woman knows when you've placed her at the center of your emotional universe. She doesn't need to be told. She feels it, in the speed of your replies, in how your plans bend around her moods, in the way your energy shifts depending on her approval or withdrawal. And in that moment, the dynamic changes. Not because she becomes cruel, but because the balance of power quietly slips away. She no longer feels like she's entering a man's grounded life. She feels like she has to carry it. And nothing suffocates feminine desire more than the weight of being needed. You may think you're expressing devotion, showing her that she matters, but to her it registers as emotional dependency. And dependency isn't love, it's neediness wrapped in false affection. You're not just asking her to walk beside you, you're asking her to hold you up. And in doing so, you diminish the very fire that drew her in. You've become emotionally homeless, trying to live inside her approval. That's not power, that's emotional suicide. This line isn't metaphorical exaggeration, it's a brutally honest mirror. Because when a man stops being the rooted center of his own life and starts orbiting a woman's attention, he begins to vanish. Piece by piece, his dignity, his certainty, his masculinity dissolve into silent pleading. She sees it in your eyes even when you don't say a word. And slowly, what once attracted her begins to repulse her. A Stoic man does not outsource his sense of self to anyone. Not to a woman, not to her words, not to her reactions. He knows that love built on emotional fragility is not love. It's a form of control. So he takes full responsibility for his internal world. He builds a life so fulfilling, so aligned with his values and vision, that her presence is never required to complete it, but always welcomed to enrich it. This is where the shift begins. You stop looking to her to validate your worth. You stop interpreting her silence as punishment. You stop waiting for her texts as if they are oxygen. Instead, you begin to reallocate that precious emotional energy back to where it belongs, into your own becoming. You rise before the sun, not because you're proving anything to her, but because your future deserves that kind of discipline. You train your body not to impress her, but to honor your own strength and commitment. You sharpen your mind through reading, reflection, and stillness, not to sound wise in conversation, but to build inner peace so deep it cannot be disturbed by anyone's absence. Because you've learned that your life is not a performance for her applause, it is a mission, and she is either drawn to the gravity of that mission, or she fades. And if she fades, you don't panic, you don't beg, you don't spiral. She must know that if she disappears tomorrow, your life doesn't fall apart. It just continues unshaken. This sentence is not just a bold declaration, it's a philosophy. A Stoic man doesn't derive meaning from being needed. He derives strength from being steady. She must know, not because you've told her, but because you live it, that her leaving does not collapse your foundation. And paradoxically, that very energy is what draws her closer. Because women are not inspired by emotional chaos, they're inspired by the man who stands centered through it. This is not about detachment or pretending not to care. This is about being rooted in self-respect so deeply that her presence is a choice, not a necessity. When she sees that your identity is not up for negotiation, that you don't morph to gain her attention, that you are whole regardless of her nearness, then, and only then, does her respect deepen. That respect often comes silently, not with praise, but with her presence, with the way she leans in more than she pulls away, with the way she starts looking to you for guidance, not attention. And in that moment you'll realize something profound. The version of you who used to obsess over her every move is gone, not hidden, not playing games, but evolved. You've become a man who no longer trades his soul for validation. You've become a man who no longer runs from silence. You've become the storm's calm center, the one who holds, not the one who clings. This doesn't mean you push her away. It means you stop pulling her in. You lead by becoming so complete in yourself that love becomes an offering, not a request. And whether she joins you or not, you continue. Because the mission you've committed to is not her, it's you, your discipline, your peace, your standard. This is emotional leadership. And when she experiences it, not in your words but in your stillness, she will feel safer than she ever did when you tried to please her. Because finally, she's not being asked to carry your sense of worth. She's being invited into a reality that doesn't collapse when she walks out. So stop needing her, stop performing, stop waiting to be chosen. Choose yourself so relentlessly that the world, including her, feels that choosing you isn't just a possibility, it's a privilege. That's how it begins. That's how power is reclaimed. You don't take it back from her. You take it back from yourself, the version of you that handed it over to begin with. 2. Master your mind. Be the man who doesn't flinch. Your mind is either the strongest fortress you have or the most dangerous prison, and no woman can fully respect or trust a man who hasn't mastered the terrain within his own head. When a man lacks inner discipline, when his thoughts run wild and his emotions dictate his every move, he becomes easy to shake, and women can sense it, not because they're testing you for sport, but because on some level they want to know if you can be trusted to stay standing when things get real. That's why the Stoic man trains for stillness. Not stillness in the absence of chaos, but stillness in the middle of it. He doesn't react just because he's triggered. He doesn't break just because she pulls away. He doesn't collapse when the silence stretches longer than expected. Instead, he breathes, grounds himself, and chooses a response that reflects his self-control, not his insecurity. A woman doesn't need a man who reacts. She needs a man who responds. And that difference changes everything. A reactive man can be swayed by emotion, manipulated by pressure, and derailed by uncertainty. But a man who responds, deliberately, calmly, without emotional panic, is the one who commands respect. He doesn't need to raise his voice. He doesn't need to chase clarity. His strength is quiet but undeniable. You don't gain her respect by trying to control her. You gain it by mastering the war inside your own mind. Because the battlefield is never truly between you and her. It's between your ego and your self-respect, between your fear and your discipline, between your need to be validated and your commitment to staying grounded. She will pull away. She will grow quiet. Not to hurt you, but to see what version of you shows up when the comfort is gone. She doesn't want to break you. She wants to see if you break yourself. And if you do, if you crumble, if you chase, if you lose your balance over her distance, she may not even know why, but something inside her will shift. Because what she was drawn to in the first place wasn't just your presence. It was your composure. She's not looking for perfection. She's watching for one thing: stability under pressure. When you feel that pull to fix things, to explain yourself, to send that second or third text, pause. When you feel the urge to defend your worth, to argue your case, to demand her emotional attention, pause. Stillness isn't silence, it's strength. It's the decision to not let temporary emotion destroy permanent self-respect. Don't over-explain, don't triple text, don't beg to be understood. Instead, ground yourself. Journal your thoughts instead of speaking them in panic. Meditate not to empty your mind, but to become aware of what's hijacking your peace. Train your body not just for aesthetics, but because discipline over the body sharpens discipline over the mind. When discomfort arrives, don't run from it. Sit with it until it becomes your teacher. Every time you choose not to react, you reclaim a piece of your power. Every time you breathe instead of break, you become the man she can't shake. And the more you walk this path, not once, but consistently, the more you evolve into something few women encounter: a man who cannot be emotionally manipulated. Vanish into your evolution so profoundly that the next time she sees you, you're unrecognizable. Not out of spite, out of progress. That transformation isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. She'll see it in the way your eyes no longer flinch when she tests your silence, in the way your body language doesn't fold when the vibe shifts, in the way you don't need to explain your absence because your energy speaks for you. She doesn't follow the loudest man in the room. She follows the one who doesn't move when others panic. That is who you must become. Not a performer, not a pleaser, but a man who has built such a solid interior that even when the world goes quiet, he doesn't lose his rhythm. Even when emotions rise, he doesn't abandon his values. Even when rejection whispers, he doesn't forget who he is. To master your mind is to become the one man she can't figure out, because you're not being pulled by external forces. You've taken full ownership of yourself, your tone, your focus, your direction, and when she senses that, she'll respect it deeply. Not because you demanded it, but because you earned it by mastering the only thing you ever had control over, yourself. That's the man who doesn't flinch. That's the man who doesn't chase. That's the man who becomes unforgettable. 3. Control the frame. Don't just set standards. Live them without compromise. Respect is never earned by a man who constantly tries to please. It's earned by the one who knows who he is and refuses to become anything else, even when love demands it. You don't gain power by being liked. You gain it by being respected. And that respect isn't built in loud moments of declaration. It's built silently, in how unshakable you remain when your boundaries are tested. Every man talks about standards. Few men live them. Fewer still can hold them when they are challenged by someone they desire. That's where the concept of frame becomes more than just advice. It becomes your internal compass, the invisible structure that holds your emotional and moral posture steady, no matter who or what confronts you. A strong frame is not about controlling others. It's about refusing to abandon your principles in the name of connection. When you have a frame, it means you've defined your values, your mission, and your emotional non-negotiables. And once those are clear, you live them, not occasionally, not when it's convenient, but always. You do not explain your boundaries. You enforce them. This one sentence is a complete worldview. You don't argue over them. You don't write paragraphs defending them. You don't water them down to avoid discomfort. Because the second you begin to rationalize a value, you signal to the world, and especially to her, that it's negotiable. And a negotiable boundary is no boundary at all. When you let her disrespect slide, when you tolerate her hot and cold energy, when you look the other way at her passive-aggressive comments, you think you're being patient, mature, or understanding. But what you're really doing is training her, not through words, but through allowance. You're teaching her how far she can go before you flinch. And make no mistake, she will remember exactly how far that is. This isn't manipulation. This is human nature. She's not trying to break you. She's trying to understand you. She's looking for a man who doesn't yield under emotional fire, a man who can stay centered while she storms around him, because the woman may test, but she doesn't want to lead. She wants to trust that you will. When you say no, say it with calm. When something crosses your values, stand your ground without anger. When you feel tempted to justify your line, don't. Hold it. Watch how the energy in the room changes. Watch how your stillness commands more attention than any argument ever could. You lead by staying unshaken. And that leadership isn't loud. It's lived in your tone, in your timing, in your truth. Your frame isn't about being rigid. It's about being rooted. Just like a tree bends with the wind but never detaches from its soil, you can adjust your communication, listen to feedback, consider new perspectives, but you never compromise who you are to maintain someone else's comfort. And she will test that, not to hurt you, but because she wants to see if what you claim to believe actually lives inside you. Every man says he values honesty until honesty makes her cry. Every man says he wants respect until setting that boundary threatens her attention. Every man says he has a mission until she offers intimacy that makes him want to abandon it for a weekend of comfort. Frame is not an idea, it's a discipline. And it has to be lived in real time when your heart is tempted and your ego wants to retreat. Because the second you collapse into what's easy, you dissolve into someone she no longer needs to follow. A woman doesn't surrender to the man who compromises. She surrenders to the man who commits. That commitment is not to her. It's to your purpose. It's to your path. It's to the life you are building with or without her. Because she doesn't want to be the center of your world. She wants to be invited into a world that already has direction, gravity, and meaning with or without her presence. Frame means you stop negotiating your integrity. If you say disrespect is a deal breaker, then when it shows up, you walk. If you say your morning routine is sacred, then no matter how attractive the distraction, you keep it sacred. If you say you will not tolerate drama, then the second it arrives, you create distance. You do this not to be cold, but to be consistent. And women don't fall in love with flexibility, they fall in love with certainty. They fall in love with the man who keeps his word, not just to her, but to himself. When you walk into a room, your frame walks in before you. It's in how you move, how you speak, how you pause before responding. It's in the way you say no without explaining. It's in the way you don't chase clarity when someone chooses to be vague. And it's especially in how you protect your peace when chaos wants a seat at your table. Frame means living in alignment, not bending for validation, not folding for connection. It means you lead the interaction, not through control, but through presence, through groundedness, through the quiet confidence that says, "This is who I am, and if that doesn't work for you, I'll keep walking." The right woman will feel safe in that, not because you cater to her every need, but because your energy tells her she's entering a structure, not a storm. She will test the frame, not because she wants to leave, but because she wants to know it's real. And the more you hold it, the more she can finally rest. So audit your life like a king audits his court. Who strengthens your mission? Who distracts you from it? Who respects your throne, and who tries to rearrange it for their own comfort? Cut what doesn't align. Protect what does. You do not bend your world to be liked. You build your world so powerfully that only the aligned remain. And when she realizes you cannot be moved by seduction, by guilt, or by fear of loss, something shifts. She doesn't pull away. She pulls closer. Because finally, she's found a man who isn't afraid to be alone, to be misunderstood, to walk away if necessary. And that kind of man is rare. That kind of man is irresistible. Because at the end of the day, a woman doesn't want to wonder where the line is. She wants to feel it. She wants to know what you'll walk away from. And when you show her, without anger, without performance, she'll know she's met a man who won't trade his soul for her affection. And the moment you live like that, not just in one area but in all, the frame isn't something you hold. It's something you become. Not because you're trying to lead her, but because you've finally learned to lead yourself. 4. Lead without chasing. Become the gravity, not the seeker. There's something unshakably powerful about a man who moves through life without chasing anything, especially not validation, approval, or affection. That kind of man doesn't beg to be seen. He becomes so rooted in purpose, so full of quiet presence, that being around him feels like standing near gravity. It pulls, it steadies, it commands attention, not through noise, but through undeniable force. The Stoic man does not chase women. He builds momentum. He doesn't flood her inbox or leave a trail of desperate signals. He doesn't try to manage impressions or manipulate her perception. He lets his reality speak for itself. He floods the world with his presence, not with his persuasion. He is not loud. He is clear. He doesn't ask to be chosen. He becomes so valuable, so aligned with who he is, that to ignore him starts to feel like a loss. Not because he punishes her absence, but because his presence cannot be easily replaced. You lead without chasing by becoming the man who needs nothing but adds value to everything. It starts in silence. In the early mornings when no one is watching, while others are still asleep, still distracted, still lost. You build yourself brick by brick. Your body, your mind, your craft, your name. You read when others scroll. You move while others doubt. You show up with calm direction when others are reactive and lost. You don't do this to be impressive. You do it because your life deserves that level of discipline. And that kind of focus is what transforms you from someone waiting to be desired into someone impossible to ignore. This is the paradox. The less you try to prove, the more undeniable you become. You don't need to pursue a woman when you're deeply immersed in your evolution. Her attention becomes a byproduct, not a requirement. You lead not with pressure, but with posture. Not with force, but with consistency. Not with demand, but with direction. That's what makes you magnetic. And if she walks away, let her. Don't chase. Don't correct her perception. Don't beg for clarity, because your life doesn't stop moving for anyone. The river doesn't halt its current because someone stopped swimming. You continue, not out of pride, but out of principle. Your path is not reactive, it's designed. The world bends to the man who bends for no one. Let that sentence settle deep into your bones. It is not a license for arrogance, it's a reminder of dignity. You don't bend for comfort, you don't contort to be accepted, you don't dilute your mission just to keep someone from leaving. Because when you bend for approval, you break your alignment. And when you break your alignment, you lose everything you were building. Not just with her, but within yourself. This is what so many men miss. They believe that if they just show more love, more effort, more sacrifice, she will stay. But love that comes from lack is never respected. Love that comes from need is never trusted. Women don't fall for men who are available at all costs. They fall for the ones who are grounded at all times. Leading without chasing means understanding that your value is not up for negotiation. Your presence is not a gift to be thrown at the feet of uncertainty. Your time is not a currency you spend to buy affection. It is sacred. It is intentional. It is earned, not just by her, but by anyone who wishes to be part of your life. That doesn't mean you become distant or cold. It means you become deeply selective. It means you guard your attention as the gateway to your energy. You offer connection without desperation, affection without dependence, love without losing yourself in the process. When you operate like this, she notices, not instantly, but inevitably. She sees it in your posture when you don't react to provocation. She feels it when your energy doesn't flinch just because she pulls away. She senses the difference between the man who needs her to feel whole and the man who is whole before she even speaks. And that difference changes everything. Because the man who leads without chasing builds a world she wants to enter. He's not begging her to come in. He's not standing at the door with anxiety. He's building while she watches. He's creating while she wonders. He's advancing while she evaluates. He is not static. He is not waiting. He is living. That kind of man doesn't need to send long texts to be heard. His actions are loud. His direction is clear. His silence is not empty. It's full of movement. The more you chase her, the more you teach her that you have no center, that your direction depends on her validation, that your sense of peace lives in her response. But the less you chase, the more she begins to question, what is he focused on that's more important than chasing me? And that question is the beginning of the shift. That's where gravity starts. Lead with your consistency. Lead with your transformation. Lead with the way you protect your vision, not just your heart. Build your life so powerfully that you don't even notice she's watching until she's already walking back into your orbit. Not because you pulled her, but because she missed what it felt like to be near something immovable. Women don't want to rescue a man. They want to rise beside one. They don't want to carry your self-worth. They want to feel inspired by it. And that only happens when you stop asking if you're good enough and start building a life that makes the question irrelevant. Don't lead to win her. Lead because that's who you are. Lead because your soul demands direction. Lead because when you stop chasing her, you start chasing your own potential. And nothing is more attractive than a man in motion, a man in purpose, a man who has chosen growth over approval. She won't say it out loud, but she will feel it in your silence, your steadiness, your discipline. She will feel it in the way you don't ask to be chosen, because you've already chosen yourself. And that, more than anything, is what separates you from the rest. Because you were never meant to be the seeker, you were always meant to be the gravity. And the moment you live like that, not in arrogance, but in alignment. You become the man who leads not by chasing, but by becoming the standard she can no longer find anywhere else. That's not control. That's clarity. That's not manipulation. That's maturity. That's not ego. That's evolution. And it begins the second you stop asking what she wants and start becoming everything you were always meant to be. I'm not saying any of this from a pedestal. I say it because I've lived it. I know what it's like to feel lost in a woman's silence, to shape your days around her moods, to mistake neediness for love and wonder why everything starts to fall apart the moment you give her everything. What I've learned, sometimes the hard way, is that a man doesn't lose a woman by being cold. He loses her by losing himself. This journey I've walked you through, stopping the need for her, mastering your mind, holding your frame, and leading without chasing. It's not about being distant. It's about being whole. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself that you gave away too easily, too quickly, in the name of connection. It's about realizing that no amount of her affection will ever replace the power of your own alignment. Because here's the truth. The woman you want, the one who respects you, who trusts you, who stays close not because she has to, but because she wants to, that woman doesn't want your emotional dependence. She wants your emotional leadership. And leadership starts inside, in your morning routine, in the silence you choose instead of over-explaining, in the calm tone you hold when everything tempts you to react, in the way you say no when it would be easier to fold. You don't get respect by performing. You get it by becoming. You don't earn love by needing her. You attract it by not needing to be rescued from yourself. So here's the life lesson. Stop orbiting her and start building a life with its own gravitational pull. A life rooted in direction, in discipline, in dignity. A life where her love is a beautiful addition, but never the source of your identity. That's the kind of man who doesn't flinch. That's the kind of man who doesn't chase. That's the kind of man she follows. And more importantly, that's the kind of man who respects himself, whether she stays or not. If something in you stirred while watching this, don't ignore it. That feeling. It's your strength, remembering itself. Let it rise. Like this video. Subscribe to Stoic Station. Stay close to the path. Not just for you, but for the men still out there, searching. Searching for the quiet power you've just begun to reclaim.